This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. Today I'm going to talk about the unidimensional civilizational paradigm behind the individual and sociocultural diversity. Everybody understands that there is a huge diversity of peoples, ethnicities, cultures, social arrangements, and also civilizational sub paradigms. Okay, that's the point of what I'm going to talk about. What many of us don't understand is the unidimensional civilizational paradigm, which is imperialist, that started to be imperialist. Okay, imperialism is older than capitalism. It's just the imperialist paradigm was hijacked by capitalism, and there was not really hijacked. It was they fused together. Okay, there was imperialism shares characteristics with capitalism, which is expansion, conquer, domination, extractionism, exploitation, enslavement, hierarchy, and caste or class system. This is both shared by imperialism and by capitalism. So we cannot understand that the diversity at the individual level and also at sociocultural or every other level is always submissive to the unidimensional reality, that civilizational paradigm, that is the default system where we have to survive, where we learn strategies of survival, which means that we get an education, we are instrumentalized and indoctrinated to adapt to this reality, and that reality becomes our subjective, our subconscious reality. And so many of us, I believe, do not really understand this in a holistic way, which means that we really do understand how it affects how we think, how we relate to each other, how we behave, in spite of all the differences, the idiosyncratic differences that separate us from each other, that make each one of us a unique individual, and that we can build sociocultural systems that are also unique, and all the rest. But that the underlying system, even in the countries that have been able to, to develop, to institutionalize through revolution or whatever, socialist systems, which means like China, like the USSR, or Vietnam, or North Korea, or Cuba, or any other place, the power, the metastasis, okay, of the imperialist. I mean, there is still the imperialist, even in people that truly believe in socialism and communism. We all are, in one way or another, influenced, colonized by this, which is the right word, colonized, mentally colonized by this paradigm, by this imperialistic, capitalistic, civilizational paradigm. And this is, in my view, one of the points that is crucial to understand. To free. I mean, everybody understands one thing, I guess. To be able to free ourselves from any addiction, from a prejudice, from whatever it is that is keeping us under in a short leash. Let's put it this way. We need first and foremost to understand how it works, what it is, and how it works. And then we can develop a strategy to clean ourselves. What does it mean by cleaning? Not exactly that we are going to get rid of the old ideas, but we, through a conscious transformative process, we can really make the old rules, the old principles, the old belief systems become submissive, not become the dominant ones. That's how it operates within our brains, in our neuronal networks. I don't care, because people these days, only the lines of thoughts that are provided by scientific research that they use sometimes, or most of the times, or very reductive, very reductionist methods. All right, very reductionist and very framed in ways that for sure, they condition the result of the research, and therefore, what we take for scientific knowledge is not correct, because it is framed in ways that it's not going to give us, doesn't include many variables and many parameters that we are exposed, that is the real life, and that is also our living organism. When we study our minds, we are not studying our minds or our brains. We can understand the processes, like we can understand how the stomach works or how whatever, or that's all right. But the way, in order to, it's not because the scientific knowledge is not important. It's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm trying to make clear that we need, since I'm not a scientist, since I do not have, I'm just a human being that tries to think about and really cares about finding that we can think by ourselves. I mean, we can figure, there are many things that we can get from common sense, and sometimes I find what is supposed to be scientific knowledge, and I find it rubbish. This is just because these people have just think always, follow, in my opinion, I follow these principles, okay? And the principles are, we all, each one of us is always flawed. We cannot understand the whole thing. We need to understand it through what we get from others. Okay? That's how we understand reality. We don't understand the reality without, that's what I used to say, that we are, what we really are, is bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experience. Okay? We work on that. But when we start to believe that it's only our, that we are so smart and so this and so that we know better than, no, we don't know better than others. We are flawed. All of us are flawed, incorrect, incomplete, and sometimes absolutely wrong about many things. That's why we need social interaction, not only direct, but through books, through lectures, through talks, through whatever it is that you expose yourself, and you should be aware that by exposing yourself to whatever you expose yourself, voluntarily or involuntarily, it's going to affect you. It affects us because our brains are going to process it and are going to and it always takes a toll. So this is one aspect. Let's go back to what I was trying to say. So it might seem that there is we might my point is that just because people like me that do not have credentials to show, why should you pay attention to my lines of thought when I'm saying that whatever are the stances, the thoughts, the ideas that I try to convey, why should, if I don't have any scientific background, if I do not have any credentials, as I said, why should you pay attention to them? Yeah, that's a legitimate question. But in the other hand, why shouldn't we all have a seat at the table? Which means if we try our best to do our own research, and by the way, never buy into the idea that science is not biased. Science is biased. Okay? Scientists are biased and have prejudices. And why? Because again, I do believe that we can overcome prejudices. But we always go from one set of prejudices to another set of prejudices. The idea is not to getting rid of prejudices, is understanding how prejudices work, how narratives work on inside of us, and what kind of narratives could help us to build a culture of liberation, and the narratives that do the opposite, which I believe that's where the reality where we live. We don't have culture of liberation, we have cultures of enslavement, of mental, cognitive, affective enslavement, control, domination. That is the reality where we live. And these people, the people that climb the ladder of the academic ladder and the they have a reputation, and they have a socio-economic, they have a reputation and also economic and financial interests. So the more people build that reputation and public recognition, whether they deserve it or not is another question. The point is, they might believe they are really authorities, and then we accept people as authorities. People can be an authority in a very specific area of knowledge or technological or whatever, but we all need to be, we don't need to be experts. We need to build a holistic understanding of the reality of ourselves, of how we relate to each other, of why we behave the way we behave in certain circumstances. And that's the point, that we should not buy into those reductionist explanations that you get most of the time from the science. Because they usually they give you an answer by excluding, by omitting parts of the reality. And that's what I'm trying to emphasize. And usually one of the parts that science keeps out is the socio-economic frame, or also the political economy frame, which means that as if we do not need to include those parameters and variables when we analyze human behavior, okay? Like psychiatrists do, for example, as if we would live in absence of society, as if society doesn't exist. As if there is not an economic system and that economic system is based on relations, that we need to understand that what an economic system, if it doesn't work, if it's not based on reciprocity, is based on exploitation. It's based on class exploitation. And we don't need to be Marxists or communists or socialists to understand it. We need, again, common sense. The unidimensionality that I'm trying to talk about, which means this part of the iceberg that is submerged, that we don't see, that we are blind. It's a blind spot. But it affects immensely our behavior and our perception of the world and ourselves, is everywhere. So it means that it is omnipresent, it affects all of us, and it affects even more the ones that are more educated. And why? Because in order to get an education, and I mean an orthodox education, you need to submit to the rules of this game in order to succeed. So the ones that are actually very smart, because they can grasp knowledge, they can acquire new knowledge, they can understand different language systems like mathematics or physics or arts or music or whatever it is, that these different language systems we have, and codes and signs that we use as tools to understand reality and to communicate and all the rest. They need the process of indoctrination and instrumentalization is there. So it's not about being smart, because all of us have some sort of intelligence, okay? Practical, pragmatic, abstract, this and that, emotional, and whatever it is. Usually it's a combination. It's not just that we are just one thing. We are always a combination of many things. It's just how is the reality of a living organism. That we always need to understand it as when we look at us, when you observe you need always to understand that we are living organisms that are always in some sort of context, interacting with that context, being affected by that context, and also participating in a certain way in that context. Okay, so always keep it in mind. We know it, but we don't act as if we would be aware of it, and that's the point. That's exactly my point. By knowing things intellectually, it doesn't mean that it doesn't change anything on us. It has to go through a conscious, transformative process to become, to introduce changes on us, and should be conscious, because we should be aware of kind of conscious we want to promote, to implement on ourselves. So this unidimensional paradigm is always there, and being more educated doesn't make you more free. That's my point. Okay, you don't become, your mind doesn't become more free or freer just because you have Ivy League education, okay? Just because that's why you can find very dumb, smart people, that smart people that have dumb ideas, the paradox, and they don't even understand it. Because if we do not are open to, if we become too full of ourselves, we stop learning. We just, we just become more and more convinced that we know the truth about whatever it is, and we don't. Okay, we don't. We always need to others. Like I think there is some sort of saying that goes that we need others to tell us who we are. Okay, and it's not only about that. It's about that we need others to become who we are. This is for the good reasons, but also for the bad reasons. So, the unidimensional paradigm that I'm talking about, most of us are not aware of it. We just live in it. Like the fish, like the water for the fish, or like the air for us. We are not thinking about the air all the time. Most of the time we don't think about it, unless it's windy. But we live there, and we cannot live anywhere else, because it's our environment. It's the environment we need to survive. And that is the same about a civilizational paradigm. But that, in the case where we live today, the default paradigm, the universal, the global paradigm is, and it has not, it's not in spite of what people say about China and about this new so-called multipolar world. Nothing is changing in that aspect. China lives in the life in China, the society in China is organized through the same principles, the same capitalistic, imperialistic. I'm not saying, do not think that I'm saying that China is imperialistic. It's not what I'm talking about. It's the underneath, is the submerged part of the operating system that is imperialistic. Because the cultures, the societal systems, the traditions, the arts, the architecture, everything is still based on that framework. And this is what many people don't understand. And many people don't understand that we carry it within our neuronal systems. Okay? It is part of our implicit memories. It is part of our subconscious mind in the form of narratives, of the narratives that shape our perceptions, that shape how we perceive each other, again, how we perceive the world, how we behave, and how we relate to each other and with the world. And this is something that we cannot ignore, because we can think, we can be very, many of us, at least, I would not say all, of course, but many of us want justice. We fight for equality. Many of us want a world without castes or classes, and we don't want to continue this system of pillage, to destroy nature and everything else. We do not really want it, but we keep doing it. We don't solve the problem of poverty. Why? Why don't we solve the problem of poverty? Because the poverty is manufactured. Is manufactured by a system that is based on the enclosure of the commons and manufacture scarcity. How can you solve poverty if you do not solve the root causes, the root that causes it? And this is obvious. It is obvious, but it doesn't mean that we grasp it. Yeah? Because of what? Because the underneath platform, sociocultural platform, ideological platform, that is the context where our cognitive affective systems work, is oblivious to it. Okay? And this is if we do not acquire a critical, if we don't train and develop a critical analysis, a holistic critical analysis that allows us to put these realities into perspective and to have a systemic view, to have a systemic understanding of them, we will continue to be victims. And it doesn't matter. We can talk a lot about economic inequalities and social injustice and political this and then dictatorship and freedom and this and that. It's going not to change anything, because we do not understand that even when we change the system as it happened, and we change the system as it happened in the USSR and in China and in Cuba and North Korea and Vietnam and elsewhere, wherever, it doesn't really, the seeds of destruction, we do not really got rid of the roots of the problem. They still there. And then we can say that these systems don't work. Okay? Yes, they will never work until we do understand that we have never really come to grips with the roots of the problems. We have never really solved the origins of the problem. Okay, and the origins of the problem is the paradigm, the civilizational, imperialistic, capitalistic paradigm that operates not only through our political, cultural, and social and economic institutions, but it lives inside us and through us. And this is what I really want, I mean, there's always many things that can be said, and you have to understand that I'm not pretending to know, I'm just trying to add something to the conversation. I'm not the conversation, okay? It's not about me. It's about that I think these ideas are important. And because if it's about me, nothing changes, okay? If it would be about me, it would be just about another guy trying to become an authority on something and to become admired or idolized or whatever. It's not the point. That should never be the point. For those who know me, know that I'm against followerism. We don't need authorities, we don't need saviors, we don't need leaders. That's not what we need. Okay? Because if we always try to, instead of feeling responsible, we always try to think, or we always operate in the frame of mind, psychological, psychocognitive, affective frame that we locate the responsibility in others, that for sure that we are going to be used and abused. It's not. It's because usually even the best, the leaders or saviors or authorities that have the best objectives in mind, they really want the best for the people, the best for the planet. They will not live forever. And there is always the ones among us with sociopathic, opportunistic, narcissistic, psychopathic, megalomaniacal traits that won't, because those people, that's what they crave. They crave power and control. Because they don't have, they lack empathy and compassion. They don't care usually about shame and guilt. Might not feel it at all. Therefore, they are just waiting for the opportunity to grab power. Okay? And this is the world where we live. And only when we understand the roots of it, this civilizational, this imperialistic civilizational paradigm that we carry within us, and that's why we have to deal with it. Because if we do not deal with it there, our behavior, our actions, our thoughts, our perception of the world is going to, in spite of everything else, is going to keep being influenced by it. Because it's the default system running and operating in our cognitive affective systems. And again, please, I'm not an expert. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a cognitive neuroscientist. I'm not a cognitive linguist. I'm not any sort of psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a sociologist. I'm nothing of that sort. So you are just listening from a guy that is a nobody. Nevertheless, if there is something that I claim to aspire. I don't pretend to be one. What people say is a free thinker. And I'm not trying to bullshit anybody. I'm not trying to convince anybody. What I'm trying to do is exactly that people question certainties, belief systems, frameworks, ideologies that build and train the ability of deep thought, holistic thought, and also self-analysis, which is very important. Introspection. Because this is, I'm just trying to say that it's not only enough to discuss whatever we discuss, and it is important to know the concepts, all concepts around the economy, how the economy really works, politics, society, education, culture, psychological manipulation, propaganda. Everything is necessary. It is necessary to learn, to acquire the tools, to use them to understand the reality where we live, to understand our environment where we operate, where we have to survive, to which we need to adapt. But if you find it dysfunctional, you need to know why. And if you need to know why, you need to understand the structure, the structural problems. We need to find where it started and why, and what kind of people started it. And if it's the same people, and they are the same kind of people that keep controlling us, that seek power and seek wealth, and they don't care how much suffering they cause, how much death, misery, destruction, environmental destruction, and everything else. So we need to go deeper and wider than we usually do. We don't understand the iceberg just by studying the part of the iceberg that we can see, that is floating, that is we need to understand the part that is submerged. And that's what I'm saying, that we need to understand it, how it operates within us, how it changes us, how it shapes us. And that's going, I'm going to finish now. That's going to be all for today. I hope if someday, somewhere, whoever listens to it understands where what I want, my points, that would be nice, because none of us want to be, you have to understand that I have nobody to talk what I'm trying to articulate here. I have literally nobody to talk about it. So either I have to write it about it, or I have to do what I'm doing now. And both are actually, I rather like to these oral forms of communication. I enjoy it more. It's more fluid, more natural to me. Writing is a pain in the ass. I start and I always have problems finishing it. I go back and I never am satisfied with what we did. And that's it. So, thanks for listening. I will be back soon.